Now, Slushie up Droogs, here's Ludwig van on the Cine. That's from the soundtrack to A Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick's 1971 film adaptation of the Anthony Burgess novel, in which classical pieces by the likes of Elgar, Rossini and especially Beethoven were given an electronic twist by composer Wendy Carlos, who was known then as Walter Carlos. That was before gender reassignment surgery. Although that's the music most associated with A Clockwork Orange, what's less well known is that Anthony Burgess, whose real name was John Wilson by the way, composed music for his own stage adaptation in 1986, although it was never used originally. Now, a new production of A Clockwork Orange at Liverpool Everyman brings together for the first time Burgess's script for the play with his music, which was first reconstructed from Anthony Burgess's own notes by Dr. Kevin Malone.
Tall jumping, prancing and kicks in the yard, what goes stomps on the gully, the fists in the plot. Rocky great shoes in the branches by Millicent, Diggy the Crawley, down above this rot.
One of the Clockwork Orange songs performed on Anthony Burgess's own Bosendorfer piano. You heard Timothy Langston as the delinquent protagonist Alex and members of the Manchester Chamber Choir. Dr. Kevin Malone, who reconstructed the music from Anthony Burgess's notes, joins me from Manchester. Kevin, the novel Clockwork Orange was published in 1962, wasn't it? The music of Beethoven is central to the life of Alex, the lead character. How did Burgess himself go about writing his own music for the stage version and incorporating the Beethoven?
Hello, yes. Because he was a pianist, he was self-taught as a pianist, he taught himself composition, notation himself. He decided, he actually always thought of himself really as a musician and a composer more than a novelist, is that he would actually merge these things in all possible ways. He says he dashed off the novel in just 3 weeks, and so it must have taken a tremendous amount of concentration to put something like this together. And in drawing the music together for it, he had already written probably a good 100 compositions by this point in his life.
That's astonishing, isn't it? I mean, when you say that he thought of himself primarily as a composer who happened to write novels, that's not how we think of him, obviously.
That's right. I mean, he actually said, he was winning awards from a very young age for what he called an unwanted literary gift. So what he's really doing here is he sees Beethoven's loud, fast, aggressive music as a form of drug. And the lead character, Alex, a droog, taps into Beethoven as a form of drug, as well as a strange compound called dren, calm, and violence and all this. And Burgess had already realized that Beethoven is about two things, really. It's about creativity and destruction, and that a mature person knows how to control both. But Alex, being young, doesn't know. And so I think it actually becomes the very core of this young man's life.
Okay, so in 1986 he sits down, or possibly 84, 85, when he is thinking about his own stage version of A Clockwork Orange. We've already had Kubrick's version, where we had the Elgar, we had the Rossini, we had a lot of Beethoven sort of reformed. But he sits down and he writes his own compositions, but it's not... what is it? It's not technical musical manuscript. It's not written in the score. You had to deconstruct it in some way.
Well, he actually does write out the musical notation in the form of a piano score, and it's appended at the end of the play script. But it doesn't put the words in. The words are, the lyrics are actually in the play script, and then you have to go and find them. And the idea was, for me, was to match up the words with the music. And actually, that's relatively simple until you get to moments like, there's a word like Gloria. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 syllables, but there aren't enough notes he's written, so you have to kind of match these things up. And in fact, there's one point where the number of syllables, they're actually greater than the number of notes, and so I had to suggest repeating a certain musical passage to make things lock together.
Yeah, let's hear another clip from your reconstructed score. Actually, this is from Discipline.
Discipline, discipline, let's have discipline. Give him a haircut and shave. Courtesy, deference, that's with reference to the foul way you behave.
Anybody who knows the film of Clockwork Orange will be amazed by that. That's one of the campest things you will ever hear, isn't it? It's such a contrast to the tone of the Stanley Kubrick film, where the music sort of underpins the violence, with the baroque, the almost balletic quality, which made it so horrific in the first place.
It is. I mean, it sounds actually kind of like a Footlights review at this point, but it's a really peculiar thing is that this lighthearted discipline song, sung by the men, is actually sung by 14-year-old Alex and his prison mates while they are kicking to death a fellow inmate. And that's the music that Burgess suggests that is used in the play. I have to say, actually, Burgess said that you don't have to use his music, but so much of his music was based on Beethoven's tunes, is that he wants any theater company that puts this on to get this as a core sense of why, of the kind of driving force. There's a singularity of Beethoven in the background.
Yeah, we keep hearing Beethoven, but given that he was coming up with this sort of the music hall thing, that very strange cabaret aspect, was he deliberately going against the kind of musical tone that Kubrick had offered in his film? Because I know that Burgess wasn't particularly keen on that, was he?
No, he wasn't keen. He also had written his own film script and sent it to Stanley Kubrick, and Kubrick rejected it, and he wasn't too happy. He also wasn't very happy, of course, with the way it came out, even though it did actually bring a lot more attention to the novel. What he does is he's working. He's decided that when he writes the stage play, it's going to be a black comedy, not a morality fable, which is what the original novel is.
And the Liverpool Everyman production is the first time the music and the play will be performed together in the UK, I think, in a stage production, more than 30 years after he wrote the music. But it begs the question, is that because the music is just not that good?
It's kind of bare bones. He actually, for Burgess himself to say, this is a resource to use. He puts it right in the script itself. This is a resource. Please reference it. This is the kind of thing I want. But he does suggest that more instruments can be used, not just a piano.
So there's a challenge.
He really wants this to be amplified.
Thanks very much, Dr. Kevin Malone. And as I say, the UK premiere of Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange, a play with music, as it's known, opens at the Liverpool Everyman next Wednesday. It runs until July the 12th.